Have you ever looked into getting solar and just been hit with a wall of technical jargon? Yeah, you are not alone. One of the most common points of confusion is the power rating of a panel. So let's dive in and clear this all up.
You know, this is the exact question a farmer named Jacob asked when he decided to go solar. And it's a fantastic question because it gets right to the heart of how solar panels are measured. We're going to break down exactly what these numbers mean for you.
So let's start with the absolute basics. That WUP you see everywhere, it stands for watt peak, and you can think of it as pretty much the single most important number on a solar panel spec sheet.
Now you really got to pay close attention to that last phrase, perfect, ideal laboratory conditions. This is the key. The watt peak rating isn't what your panel is going to produce on some random cloudy Tuesday afternoon. No, it's the absolute best case scenario. It's a benchmark.
So what are these perfect conditions? Well, we're talking about a flawless sunny day with the sun just beating straight down at the perfect angle on a panel that's at the ideal temperature with absolutely zero shade. Yeah, as you can imagine, moments like that in the real world are, pretty rare.
Probably the best way to wrap your head around watt peak is with an analogy. Just think of it like this. Watt peak is the panel's engine size. It tells you how much potential power it has under the hood.
So it's pretty simple. A 600-watt panel has a bigger engine than a 400-watt panel. It has more potential power. But, and this is a big but, just like with cars, the biggest engine isn't always the right choice. Let's dig into why that is. Okay, so this brings us to the really practical side of all this. Choosing a panel isn't just about grabbing the highest watt peak number you can find. It's about fitting the right panel to your specific space.
If you've got a lot of open ground, kind of like Jacob's field, then yeah, those large, high-wattage panels can be a fantastic choice. You've got all the space in the world to line them up perfectly and make sure there's no shade.
And in those kinds of open areas, bigger panels often mean a much more efficient installation. You just need fewer of them to hit your target capacity, which means less racking, less wiring, and a faster setup. That can save you a good chunk of time and money.
But let's be real. Most of us aren't installing panels in a wide open field, right? We're putting them on our roofs, and that's where things get complicated. A huge panel, we're talking sometimes over 2 meters long and weighing more than 30 kilograms, can be a real beast to work with up there.
I mean, think about a typical roof. It's full of obstacles. You've got vents, chimneys, maybe a skylight or two. If you try to use these really large panels, you can be forced to leave these awkward gaps, wasting valuable roof space that smaller, more flexible panels could have easily filled.
So what this all really means is that for most homes, for most residential roofs, panels in that 400 to 450 watt peak range are kind of the sweet spot. They're just easier to handle, and they offer way more flexibility, which lets your installer design a system that maximizes every last bit of usable space on your roof. Okay, so we've covered power and we've covered size, but there's another really critical layer to this whole thing, the electrical side of it. To really get solar, you've got to think about voltage and current.
Here's a super simple way to remember this. Think of voltage like the water pressure in a hose, and current, or amps, is like the flow rate of the water coming out. Power, which we measure in watts, is just what you get when you multiply those two things together.
So if you look at this chart, you can see exactly how the electrical specs change with the panel size. A bigger 600-watt panel doesn't just produce more watts. It's also running at a higher voltage and current. And this, right here, has huge implications for your system design.
See, when you wire panels together in what's called a series, their voltages add up. And if you wire them in parallel, the currents add up. Getting this wrong isn't just inefficient, it can be downright dangerous. Too much voltage can completely fry your expensive inverter, and too much current can overheat wires and become a serious fire hazard.
So, how do we put all this together to make a smart choice? Well, it all boils down to matching the panel to the specific type of system you're building.
This right here is a great rule of thumb. For a little off-grid cabin, smaller 100 to 200 watt panels are perfect. For most standard home systems, that 300 to 450 watt panel range is ideal. And for those really large-scale, high-voltage systems, that's where the bigger 500 to 600 watt panels really shine.
And this really is the key takeaway from all of this. Don't get fixated on just having the highest watt peak number. The best panel is the one that is perfectly suited to your specific roof, your electrical system, and what you're trying to achieve with solar power.
In the end, it all comes down to balance.
A well-designed solar system is like a symphony. Every single component, the panels, the inverter, the batteries, they all have to work together in harmony. Going too big or too small with your panels, for the wrong reason, just creates problems. Ultimately, solar isn't just about numbers. It's about designing a system that actually fits your life. So, the question I want to leave you with is this. Now that you understand the balance between power, size, and electricity, what does the right solar system look like for you?